What's up everybody? Before I get into this video, I had a few message me about Durla in the Shadow Faction video and how I referred to her ultimate as a DOT skill. And by a few, I mean like 2, but I'd rather just clear this up. So it's a gray area since she's doing damage over time, but you can see it says attack damage over a couple seconds. I think when I see any damage that is an instant, my mind instantly goes to, oh, that's a DOT, but that's the problem. It can be a little bit confusing. The dots with effects like Hista's Bleed, Ekera's Burn, Xander's Poison. Oh, Xander, I'm going to be mentioning you again later. These are DOT or dot effects, and they can't crit, but since Durla's is attack damage, it's more so like a bunch of individual attacks, and because of that, they can actually crit. So can it be classified as a DOT? I don't really know. Yes, no, it depends on who you ask. Anyway, I just thought I would mention that, and then now back to the current video. What's up everybody? Back at it again with another Magnum Quest video, and this will be the 4th video part of the mini-series regarding factions. I have them all in a playlist, clickable at the end. This series will be updating my old video if needed regarding faction ascension priority, while adding the expensive, but at least you're guaranteed the stats or skill unlike rune enhancing oh my. Runes, don't get me started. I'll be sure to give my reasoning for my choices and of course mention any tips or things I've learned playing to help you avoid making costly mistakes. Let's get it. I'm sure by now you know Ascension priority is up first. Wild faction heroes, top 5, here we go. So number 1 is going to be Ares. So before I get any comments from the veteran players, let me just say this. Ares continues to drop in importance for me, so I wouldn't personally place him this high because I am experienced with the hero, so I can come with alternatives, such as on my 3rd free-to-play account. I never even used him, never invested into him, and that account is almost done Act 1, but I do understand he does make a solid impact early game when you get him to level 201 for quick and easy progression. If you choose to focus him. So depending on your setup, because there are multiple ways to go about progressing, you may or may not focus him first, so your perspective on ranking may differ. His ultimate, Spin to Win, paired up with that level 201 I just mentioned, because before this he basically just dies very fast, even with Ion in your setup, but at level 201, that adds Leech to his ultimate, which allows him just become an annoying hero who does lots of damage early, and also healing up for a crap load and can easily 1v5. You can definitely fast track through early, a bit of mid game with him and still remain solid in the faction dungeon. Number 2, we have Harry. Now he would be my ideal ascension, so number 1 in my eyes. But like I said, I try to keep my audience in mind, and I understand not everyone is spending, not everyone has the luck they want. Believe me, I know all about bad luck. But Harry, he's just much more valuable. He's a good tank and amazing buffer for the sole purpose of his ultimate, giving attack and haste. Due to the haste, it's why he's a staple everywhere, especially in every boss setup, to help maximize your damage potential. The chances of him getting replaced are very slim. Can he? Of course, but will he? It's very doubtful, so investing into him will never be a bad thing, and with the current state of the game, it's very necessary. Number 3, we have Issy. Her damage is ridiculous and only gets better with investment. She's the PvE queen, although I don't see many using her in PvP, but she is the PvE queen, and she's going to be 100% needed for the Wild Faction dungeon for progression, much like Durla for the Shadow Faction, because there's just not really that many options, or is there? I'm looking at you, Xander Daddy. Maybe one day he's gonna get buffed. But yeah, Ares damage falls off hard late game. If you've been in the MQ Discord, I'm sure you've seen many players saying this, and they are right. The sole purpose becomes his invulnerability to buy time, and then Hista, who I'll be mentioning next, does nice damage, but she's a paperweight, so most of the time she's just going to jump in and die right away. It's almost instant, like you're going to blink and then she's gone. I've used her a couple times in later faction dungeon floors, like in the 200s, but it's very situational. And then Xander, well Xander, yeah, basically it's all about wild heroes supporting Issy. One thing I really like about her skill kit though is her swarms that she releases with her ultimate, reducing the enemy's energy each time attacked. This is super useful to get the upper hand because it prolongs their ultimates. Number 4, we have Hista, one of the top boss DPSers but needs investment to shine. I definitely want to emphasize the needs investment part. The Ascension stars with the stats it brings will boost the damage and survivability. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, I rarely use her outside bosses. However, she is one of the easier heroes to optimize for because of her skills. Between her ultimate self buff and then her increased crit for bleeding targets, it equals out to 60% crit chance. It makes building her easier, so you don't need to worry about as much crit on your rune or star map, and you can opt in for more damage, like crit damage stat on runes. However, that's a myth, and honestly, I never really see it. Does it even exist? I don't really know. Definitely not on my account. Also, her arcane card seen here synergizes perfect with her. It's just too bad the level 3 is, well, in the most respectful way possible, it's crap. And then finally, number 5, we got Rickers. I think he's the strongest tank with the least amount of investment needed. Low ascension stars, he can still hold his ground. Very useful utility with his stuns, and I think more and more players are starting to use him, whether for PvP or PvE. The amount of stuns his skill kit has is enough to make any enemy get a headache, and he's also part of that team that I said to help support Issy. Plus he's got a huge shield, so that helps. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts about this list, if you would keep the same, change things around, or even swap out heroes for another. And then now for the second half, the star map priority list. Just remember, this is just for that said faction, so Wild, I'm not going to be taking into consideration any others. So for Wild faction heroes, top 5, here we go. Number 1, it's going to be Harry. You're going to want to take him straight to gold, and then when done bronze, you can work into Ares. Just a side note here, newer players after the release of Harry or the later you join in the game have the luxury of choosing and not wasting resources because they have the choice to see all the heroes or check out content for guidelines. The problem is you can't reset a hero's star map, then use those resources on another hero. It just converts the lights and tokens into stars of origin seen here of the same value. So if you got to here in the star map and then you reset, you would get enough stars of origin to reach this again. That's why I feel it's important to do a little research first to see if the heroes are worth it, since you can't allocate those elsewhere once you start on a specific hero. Reasons why I have Harry as my top wild strength hero is because once you get stuck in chapter, adventure, or dungeon, many late game players really only have bosses to look forward to, meaning like guild boss, puppet boss, event bosses like Puppet Wars or the holiday world bosses, trying to boost their damage numbers, and Harry is a go-to, especially when you finish his gold tier of the star map and go with enhanced therapy. It's just an amazing buffer skill. This is going to proc quite frequently off of his ultimate based off how the boss setups work, but before this, he's still a necessity because of his ultimate that I went over during his Ascension part. Key features of his star map would be for the bronze tier, we have Armor of Confusion. I did touch on this, I think, in the Fortress video with Ilya, but I personally think this is a top tier skill. Quickly glancing over at Shiny Armor, because I have seen players take this, but this sort of skill has to be a specific hero for me, because these skills, when the buff is removed when their HP drops below 50%, 30% additional defense at the beginning is good, but it's just not as valuable to me because I find he's already pretty tanky due to his own skill Devil's Teamwork. With each allied unit aside Harry on the battlefield, his damage intake decreases by 15% at max skill, so I'd rather go with Armor Confusion, especially if paired with Dracula, to increase the chance of surrounding enemies getting reduced accuracy. Just remember, like I said, if you plan to go with this, to have a mix of hit ER and attack ER. And what I mean by this is hit energy regeneration and attack energy regeneration. So each time you get hit or hit, you're gaining energy, which builds up to your ultimate. However, having a rune strictly attack ER is better for bosses, which is where I primarily use him. So if you can't get both, simply focus on an attack ER rune. And then we have the gold tier. Enhanced Therapy is the go-to choice, as I mentioned, with his ability to proc this quite frequently. When applying a positive effect to an ally, so his ultimate, and because it's AoE, you give your whole team 3 out of the 4 buffs, separate random buffs for different heroes. Each of them are going to receive a random buff of either attack, defense, accuracy, or dodge, totaling 3. The confusing part, at least for me, for the longest time, was when it says the same buff can stack up at most 3 times. I always assumed this meant with the right RNG, I could get 3 times attack buff stacked, so plus 90% attack, which I have come to learn is wrong, and I should have known this. Apparently they don't stack. So you proc this skill with Harry's ult, for an example. You're going to get 3 out of the 4 random buffs seen here. Wait 8 seconds, because even if you say use his ult again within that 8 seconds, it doesn't do anything. Then after 8, it's going to proc again, and then get another 3 out of the 4 random buffs. Which is another reason why it's very RNG for boosting damage. You'll hope your damage dealers get at least the attack buff consistently. So conclusion, based off your RNG luck with the random buffs, your damage or survivability will vary. And now number 2, we have Issy. You're going to want to take her straight to gold, and then when you're done bronze, I would say to save your intel tokens because the other heroes in Wild are just not worth it right now. Sorry Naomi, you definitely got the jiggle physics, but I won't be using my resources on you anytime soon. Reasons why I have Issy as my top wild intel hero is because, like I mentioned during the Ascension part, she is 100% needed for faction dungeon progression, and I mean she's also cute and foxy, so yeah, I'm gonna put her at number 2. But yeah, the damage numbers she puts up along with the utility she brings is very unique. I'm not sure what else to say, invest into her and just simply be amazed. Key features of her star map would be bronze tier. I personally go with Swift Victory because unlike Wyndon, who I feels drops his HP easily, Issy has sustained being a wild hero, so this skill right here adds 6% of leech. Due to her damage I do with her, I have no issue sustaining her HP above 50% to keep the crit chance buff of 20%. 20% is one crit stat on a gold rune that can now be swapped for crit damage and prot damage, whatever your heart desires. I do know some go with domino effect, which is fine. She does AoE damage, she can take advantage of this, but anytime I can utilize Swift Victory, I take it to have an easier time with rune and star map stats optimization. And then for gold tier, this is a bit iffy for me. And before I get into this, Issy actually has domino effect on both her bronze tier and her gold tier, and they actually don't stack. This has been confirmed by a staff member seen here. I'll put up the image. So this means you're going to want to take one or the other. Obviously the gold tier has higher stats, so if you want to go with that one, go with that one. I personally have found, because Puppet Wars is really what I enjoy the most, that domino effect doesn't proc. So I ended up switching to Big Bully, which I've been told works on bosses because of the hidden HP thresholds when different ones are reached, procs this damage boost of 16%. I really haven't done testing in a long time. I mean, I could easily just reset her star map, not choose any gold skill, do a couple battles, then do domino effects, see if my boss damage increases. If so, record it. If not, then it doesn't. Move over to Big Bully and do the same thing. I was going to do this for whenever I get around to her Hero Spotlight video, but if anyone has done the testing, please leave a comment down below because I think this would be good information for players. Number 3, we have Hista. You're going to want to take straight to gold, and then when you're done bronze, save agility tokens or invest into Xander and pray he gets the Wyndon treatment and becomes viable. But unfortunately, I really can't suggest doing this because I try to be as efficient as I can, whether that's spending or casually saving as a free to play. So yeah, unfortunately, save your agility tokens for the other top heroes I've mentioned in the miniseries so far. Reasons why I have Hista as my top wild agility hero is, well, her damage, 99.9% I use her for bosses only, which is what I've mentioned many times. Some heroes are for PvP, some are for PvE, some are situational. There's many different areas a hero can shine or serve a purpose, and for me, hers is bosses. Not much else to say here, so moving along to key features of her star map. For bronze tier, Bloodlust early will be your friend. Your Hista early on, whether that's regarding star map investments, squad level, ascension stars, runes, gear, anything, she won't be doing big enough damage to only survive off that wild factions leech skill I mentioned earlier, so taking Bloodlust will further increase your survivability until you no longer need it. If you are focusing on bosses, currently I think that milestone is squad level 400. I could be wrong, but it's way up there. However, if you run your boss setup with Arthur, you may be able to skip this and instead go for Big Bully for added damage. For gold tier, plain and simple, Fire of Hatred is the go-to choice. If you're fortunate enough to complete her star map and take this skill, you should see a very noticeable damage boost. I think in my Hista Hero Spotlight video, I actually tested the difference between Fire of Hatred and Torrential Attack, and without question, Fire of Hatred came out on top and was a nice added boost. I've touched on this skill before, but yeah, bosses have a set amount of hidden HP, so naturally doing damage based off an enemy HP percentage will be beneficial for what I primarily use her for. Number 4, we have Ares. I would say to take them to bronze. Silver, gold, it's up to you. I personally would do silver max, and then if you want, you can work into Ricker's bronze tier or save your strength tokens because after Harry, the rest of the wild heroes in terms of star map investment don't really need it. Reasons why I have Ares ranked here is because he's not a bad hero for investment. He just fades as being your main DPS carry, so naturally to save resources, you're going to want to invest minimally because you will be replacing him. Key features of his star map would be, for bronze tier, this is my recommendation to take him to, and what will allow for progression pushing easier if you choose the challenger skill. The reason being is it's 30% of critical damage. That's a lot. I mean, I spend, will spend, have spent, and don't have a single perfect rune for my boss DPSers when I'm trying to optimize the crit damage stat. It's just ridiculous how hard it is to get this, so 30% giving you this early on, the bronze tier, this is awesome. You gain this when attacking targets of higher levels, so basically 99.9% of the content. I won't even go over the others because Challenger is just the go-to. For gold tier, if you do choose to take him here, which I've said many times already is not very wise, I mean, well, as you can see, I stopped on my main account's Ares and didn't even finish silver. Will I ever finish silver? Probably one day, but right now he's not on my radar. But honestly, his gold tier skills aren't anything special, which is just another reason on top of him fading with importance as to why I say to minimally invest into him. If I had to choose, probably Bloodlust or Veteran's Instinct. He already has a lot of leech, so I'd probably be aiming towards Veteran's Instinct. Since he's melee, so he's right in the face of the enemies to receive the upper end of that max 16% of the damage reduction. And then number 5, we have Xander. Unfortunately, I can't recommend him as much as I want to right now, so instead probably Rickers would be a better choice for my audience. I think Rickers is gaining more popularity and would say taking him to bronze isn't a bad idea. Reasons why I have Rickers ranked here is because he's unstoppable. He's literally a wall. I wouldn't go overboard in his investment because you'll be using him situationally, and he honestly doesn't really need that much to do his job, which is be a frontline tank. Key features of his star map would be not really sure why Fury of War is an option here. Even if you build him full damage, I doubt he's going to do anything. So yeah, it's very weird to see this in his star map. Shiny Armor would be my go-to since he's so tanky. Getting him to 50% HP or lower will take a fair amount of time, so you can actually utilize that 30% additional defense, even with low Ascensions, at least from my experience across my accounts. And then for gold tier, Hunter's Delight 100%. More stuns on top of stuns. His utility would be pretty ridiculous with this skill, but I see very few players actually having a Rickers star map completed. Just like the Ascension list, comment down below if you would invest differently. Hopefully this helps players out in regards to your decision making. Divinity and Abyss will be put into one video since there's not that many heroes. I'll have this up hopefully soon. As always, thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for future videos, and stay tuned for the next one.